Okay, so the class is being recorded, and this is a makeup for the class that we should have taken yesterday. Again, it's A230A, and we're doing the romantics. And what part of the romantics and whom are we talking about this time around? We're talking about Shelley, the second generation romantic poet. So obviously, Shelley is not new to us. We have taken Shelley before the break, I guess. I mean, the 10 or the 7 day break that we had. And we have taken Ode to the West Wind and to a Skylark. And this time around, we're doing his political poems. We're doing, was it England in 1819 and Ozymandias. Okay, saying that these are political poems is obviously spoiling it for you. We're going to go very quickly over Ode to the West Wind and to a Skylark, and then make the transition to the other two poems. So how much do we still remember about To a Skylark and Ode to the West Wind? I'll show you the poems, and I'll give you the opportunity to read them one more time and come up with fresh ideas. We have already established what they mean, but it wouldn't harm anyone if we revisit the poems. Remember what I said about you appreciating poetry and getting to know what is exactly meant. And obviously, what is meant is up for grabs because you can never arrive at, conclusive conclusions about what a poem really means. In Arabic, we say it very aptly when we say that المعنى في بطن الشاعر. So it's only the poet who knows what the poem means. And yeah, sometimes even, I mean, poets write poetry, and when you ask them about what is it that they meant, they fail to answer. Perhaps it's not based on a meaning that he is trying to communicate. It is perhaps based on a feeling that he felt, and it became what it became. So at least we agree on a number of, um, you know, conclusions. It's not totally unclear what the outlines of a poem is, but perhaps the details can differ from one person to another, depending on the background that you bring to the poem, depending on how much you yourself uh, um, uh, how well read you are. I mean, the more knowledge you have, the more perhaps experiences you have in life, the more um, the more meanings and the more I mean, interpretations you can come uh, up with. So it's Ode to the West Wind, and like I said, I'll give you a chance to read it on your own, and I think I have it, so we're going to share it, and I'll give you ample time to go over it, and then we talk about it like we always do. Again, what makes it perhaps easy is that I have introduced you to the poem already, so we're looking for the details, perhaps the structure, how it is written. We're focusing perhaps on the how, and how the how helps the what being the meaning itself, the themes and the ideas, and the how meaning the rhyme and the rhythm, the imagery, stuff like that, the formal aspects, if you like. Let me see if I have the poem handy. Yeah, I have it. Let me share it. It's a long poem, which means that I mean, the obviously the screen is not going to capture all the poem. That's why from time to time you need to tell me that you have finished that part so that we can move to the second one and so on. And you may want to also take down notes. Obviously, our memories are very short and we cannot kind of memorize everything. I mean, moving from one stanza to another, from one part to another. So, in order to take stock of what is happening in the poem and the underlying significance of every and each part, you need to take down notes. Uh, let's see. So, this is the poem. It's Ode to the West Wind. And the word ode, by the way, means poem or even song. It can also be a song. So let's get started. Yalla, go ahead, read it. Try to take down notes, and I'll also read it along, and I'll try to also take down notes. Um, yeah, I'm sharing. Thou means you, by the way. Every time you see thou and thee, it means you. Can be you as in one, or it can be you as a group. Thine means your. Thine azure sister of the spring shall blow. Yeah, it's a little bit long, but well worth the effort reading it because it's full of meaning, sometimes very subtle, of course. Again, this is typical of poetry. It doesn't lend itself to easy interpretation, but at least we came up with something. You need to always remember with poetry, the poet normally starts in a certain way and this is typical, I think, ends in perhaps in a different way. Between the beginning and the end, you have a change of heart of a sort. Um, okay, let's talk about it. I'm not assuming that you have understood everything, because, like I said, the meaning is up for grabs, and it depends on your experience. It depends on your background. All these things are considered. So, what do you think? Where are we and what are we talking about? Ode to the West Wind. We'll come back to the title when we have finished talking about the poem itself, because obviously, let's have who is raising his or her hand? Yeah, can we have it's Ahmed, like always, because he likes poetry, and I like him for that. But can we have other people together with Ahmed, of course? We'll give him the opportunity. Try your luck. I mean, we're not judging, we're not taxing anyone. Whatever you have understood, it can be little, but your little is too much for us, I promise you. Yeah. Talal, go ahead.
From from what I understood of the poem, it is about death and how the author wishes to become part of nature, to be carried by its winds and fall and join it in its harmonious, harmonious cycle. Um,
Yeah, go on if you have more.
as well as as well as the well, as well as the
And by
end
the way,
of
your
one
voice
year.
comes in. Can you come closer to the mic? And obviously, your voice comes and goes.
Another one of the poem's themes is the coming, going of a new year, and
Okay.
the west where the west wind takes the dead leaves and scatters them all over the ocean, the air, carrying them to their metaphorical graves, as
Okay.
said in the poem.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's have somebody else. Thank you so much, Talal. Ahmed, you wanted to say something about the poem.
Yes, I wanted to say that there isn't much to talk about since we mainly reviewed everything, but I noticed the symbolism that flew over my head before, since I didn't really notice it. It's the one where the poet talks about the autumn leaves. I didn't notice that the symbolism there meant the decay of life, and there's also a ray of hope since spring comes, and there's another rebirth. So it's another symbolism that I
Yeah.
didn't really notice.
So it's not I mean the wind is not regarded as only a symbol of destruction or as a destroyer. It is also a preserver, right? Because when spring comes, like you said, you will have the seeds that starts perhaps earlier, and you need to preserve them so that they can grow, right? So the wind here, as much as it is a destroyer and is perhaps the cause for the destruction of leaves and taking them away, and but it is also a preserver of new seeds, or which, like you said, offers a ray of hope, right? So you have winter, you have autumn, which are obviously bleak seasons, end of life cycle for plants and for flowers. But obviously, this is not the end of it. You have another cycle, another life cycle where you have other plants flourishing, and because it's normally spring. And with spring, you have hope, you have sunshine. Yeah, that's interesting. Can we have anybody else? Or to the west wind? So obviously the poem, there is obviously more to the poem than just the transitioning from one season to another, where one happens to be um, indicating and suggesting decay, while the other such is suggesting, flourishing and blooming. There is obviously more to it than this mechanical change of seasons. Ghadir,
Yeah, yes, doctor.
hi, how are
Uh,
you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you? Fine, thank you. Like my colleague said, the poem is speak about nature and transformation of the wind status,
Mm,
and also it's uh, the Shelley, he's positioning himself as a voice of the wind. He is like for example, he's explaining the one situation of the wind, and it's turning on another situation in the same poem in the same time. And also like when he said the breath of autumns, also he was bringing out the seasons changing. It's like the so it's yeah, changing in the same poem from one status to another.
yeah, yes. Yeah, well, with the change, you have a lot of, you know, again, there is a lot of talk about what the wind is capable um, to do. And there is also this idea that the change can be perceived as mechanical for people, for ordinary people, but not for, um, I mean, the poet with his heightened sensibility. The fact that he looks at the wind as also um, a source of empowerment. It can empower him. It can make his poetry and his thoughts live forever with its capacity and power to move to other realms, to other places. So at one point, he would ask, first of all, to be part of this kind of wind, to be part uh, of it in terms of being its one of its tools. And at another, he would ask the wind to take his thoughts um, when he is dead and his ideas perhaps are dead, and take them like it took or it takes the dead leaves and spread them across whenever and wherever it goes. I mean the wind, and that would give immortality to his poetry and to his thoughts. It will never die. So again, the west wind can be a destroyer, but it can also preserve. Okay, um, when we see it on the physical level, we see that it destroys leaves because it's winter and autumn where leaves die, and obviously the wind contributes to this kind of destruction and this kind of death, and then it takes those leaves to other places. So this is on the physical level. On another level, he wants this same wind um, to take his thoughts, perhaps after he dies, and again go with them wherever it goes, and kind of spread them across time and place, so that people can know about his thoughts and his ideas, and that can give his poetry eternity. It can make it live forever. So again, we started off in a very um, pessimistic way by him talking about the wind, referring to the idea that it is normally autumn and winter, and the wind taking the leaves or the dead leaves in these seasons, taking them away, getting rid of them, obviously. And then over time, we see the wind turning from being a destroyer to being a preserver. Because after autumn comes and winter comes spring, and also comes summer, and these are the seasons of sunshine. And obviously sunshine means that we have things blooming and flourishing. Um, so in order for seeds and small plants to flourish and bloom, they have to be kept. They have to be preserved. And it's only the wind or the west wind that can do that. It can help them survive the transition from winter to spring, from autumn to summer. It can do that. So it has in it, I'm talking about the west wind, it has this power to destroy, and it also has this power to preserve. Um, Again, this is on the physical level of things. On a metaphorical plane, or on a metaphorical level, there is this talk that the wind, which has the ability to preserve, to first of all take away the dead leaves, and then preserve the seeds of new leaves, It also has the ability and the capacity to carry the poet's dead ideas and dead thoughts, and then take them away to other worlds, to other spaces. And in this way, it popularizes them, it makes them popular, it makes them read by other people, and that would guarantee eternity and immortality for those thoughts and those ideas. So again, the poem is not rooted in pessimism. There is also a great deal uh, uh, um, that that gives hope and new beginnings. Again, the poet is appealing to this kind of wind by saying, "Oh, wild west wind." He admits that this wind is wild. Wild means that nothing can stop it. It can destroy like a storm, like a tsunami, like an earthquake. It never stops. But this is, or perhaps on the flip side of things, it can also preserve. It destroys so that it can build, so it can make it possible for new seeds to come out. So obviously, he is appealing to the wind. He starts off with talking about or breaking down what the wind does in normal circumstances. And then he moves on from the physical level of the wind destroying and then preserving plants to talking about himself and his dead ideas after he dies, and then how, by carrying those thoughts and ideas, the wind can also popularize them and can give them eternity and immortality. Such a nice poem. It can, because it's long, it can be a little bit obscure and ambiguous in certain parts. But when you read it in its totality, and when you try to connect the dots and put things together, you come up with the big picture. And the big picture is that the wind can help popularize and immortalize the thoughts and the ideas and the poetry of the poet. So, what else would you like to say about the poem before we move on to the second poem? Any final thoughts on this poem? Let's look at the language. Let's look at the formal aspects of the poem. Obviously, it's not a sonnet because it's more than 14 lines, right? What do you think of the language? Was it accessible? Did you manage to read and understand, or was it difficult?
Yes, Dr. It's simple. I think we can reach it very well. But I
Yeah.
thought it's a sonnet because it's 14 and more.
No, it's not 14. It's bigger than 14. It's longer. Yeah,
Or
yes, yes. Um, yeah, it's not a sonnet. Definitely, it's not a sonnet. Of course, it's not a sonnet. Again, don't in trying to appreciate and understand a poem, you don't or you cannot really figure the meaning out unless and until you read the whole poem. Don't ever, stop at a line or a word and you try to figure out the meaning from this word and from this line. You need to read the poem as a whole. You need to connect its different parts, and it's only then that you can come up with a fuller meaning, if you like. Again, you need to always remember that you will always have this change of heart. The poet starts in a certain way, and he leads you on. You think that this is the direction that he or she is taking, and over time you find him taking or charting new ways, uh, um, changing the perspective, perhaps giving hope in an otherwise hopeless scenario. So this is happening here, and we'll see it with the other poems, especially with Shelley. He has this change of heart, uh, um, and change of direction sometimes. And there is always this idea of hope lurking behind. So let's have the other poem. Let me look for the other poem, and the other poem is To a Skylark. Wait. Again, we read it before, but we're reading it for perhaps more meaning, for more and a deeper and a fuller understanding. So this is the poem. Yeah. Again, it's long. That's why we need to move from one section to another. Again, it wouldn't harm if you have a pen or a pencil handy where you can jot down ideas and notes. It's a lovely poem, right? The more you read, I mean, the more you read it, obviously, the more ideas, and the more enjoyment and delight you get. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so here we have another element of nature. In the previous poem, it was the wind. He was addressing the wind. And this time around, he is addressing another element of nature, which is the skylark. You know what a skylark is? It's a bird, right? So let's talk about it. What did we understand? Um, Perhaps the word understand is not an accurate word because it also has feelings to it. It has appreciation, which does not necessarily happen with understand. You can feel it. You can feel a poem, um, even if you don't understand it. You can feel the joy if there is joy. You can feel the sorrow and the sadness if there is any. So, what kind of feelings? Before we talk about understanding, where does the poem leave you in terms of sensations and whether those sensations are sweet or otherwise? Give me your impression about the poem. Don't think. I don't want you to think. Come to the mic and say, yeah, I liked it, I hated it, I didn't appreciate it. It's not as, yeah. Give me whatever thoughts you have at the moment now. Yalla, come to the mic. تغريد.
Yes, doctor. It's like rhyme. There is too much rhymes and it's like harmony. It's very joyful, like you said. You enjoy while you're reading it. It's full of happiness. Watching the birds singing and moving around.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, go on. I'm sorry. I don't want to kind of spoil it for you. Yeah, tell
No,
me.
no, it's fine. It feels like there is in the when you are between the words when you read it the first time you immediately you capture the atmosphere of the poem itself.
Uh,
So it's very nice to read and very nice to analyze.
Yeah. So in spite of the fact that it is long, it's still, you find it interesting and well worth the time you spend reading it, right?
Yes, it's joyful. I think it's I believe it's very nice, like it's nature.
Nice. Thank you so much, ya Taghreed.
Yeah, doctor.
Taghreed, are you from Jeddah or Riyadh or where right now?
From Medina.
Medina. Nice. Yeah. Nice place. Yeah.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
yeah. Let's have somebody else. Thank you so much, ya Taghreed. Ahmed.
Uh, while Tagreed shared the points about how the skylark in itself brings joy and
Mm.
there's a sense of tranquility and harmony.
Mhm.
There's also the
You know,
contrast.
we also, may I add that we also have this sense of bewilderment, the fact that he is bewildered, he is wondering what, um, I mean, he obviously compared the Skylark to a lot of things, right? So there is this sense of nice and sweet bewilderment. You know what bewilderment is? When you feel amazed at something, when you feel intrigued in a nice way, right? You don't really, you cannot get to the bottom of something. You cannot really understand what uh, the skylark. I mean, if we apply to the skylark, it is about this idea that to what can I compare the skylark? I mean, he is trying to cry, kind of, he's trying to prepare us to the conclusion that it is one of a kind, that it is unique. You cannot compare it to anything else in the world or in nature for that matter. Is this what you also felt, ya Ahmed? He's trying
Yes,
to build to come to this conclusion.
Similar to that point, yes, where he compares even the skylark to a star, a poet, a maiden, and many other
Yes.
things in the poem.
Excellent.
And
Yes.
also shows the contrast between human limitations, where he believes humans, as great as they are, will never get close to experience such a joy and harmony.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. So the conclusion would be that it is compare. I mean, you cannot actually compare it to anything else in the world. It's bigger. I mean, it's bigger in value. I mean, it's um, it's more what? Uh, uh, yeah, it's amazing. It's more amazing than anything else that he saw or knew or knew. I mean, yeah, very good. Yeah, go on if you still have more to say, Ahmed, about the poem.
That was the main general point, actually, that I
Yes,
had. Tagreed
nice.
mentioned the first one about joy and harmony. So
Yes. So how about the experience of revisiting it? Do you think that the revisiting it allowed you to have more insights into the poem?
it certainly did. And for me,
Mm,
since I find reading poems very heavy, I find it
mm,
heavy on my heart. Like I don't find the joy in it unless
mm,
there's a lot of rhymes, and there
mhm,
are actually a lot of rhymes in this specific poem. So it's actually
mm.
enjoyable to read for me.
Nice, very good. And how? I mean, remember we said that poetry is also very intellectual. And this is obviously contrary to popular belief. People would normally associate poetry with only feelings or mere feelings, when poetry is the most, perhaps the most mathematical, if, let me put it this way, of the arts, the most intellectual. You have this logical build-up. Did you feel that in the poem? Did you feel that he is building up something? Starting with moving from one point to another in order to kind of build some kind of, um, I mean, logic. Have you felt that there is a logic behind what is being said, or is it just random?
I wouldn't say random, but the thing is, it felt it's more like it was well architectured, yes. So it was
Mhm.
understandable. So he was building
Yes.
something out of the poem. We could
Yeah.
see that. But
Yeah.
was it built with logic? I'm not sure. I feel like
I
he
mean,
built it with
when we
emotions.
talk, I mean, remember you said architecture, and architecture is about math. I mean, you put figures and numbers together, certain measurements, and you come up with an edifice or a building, right? It has to be well proportioned. It has to have logic to it, right? That's why we have the drawing room, right? So in a similar vein with poetry, you have, I mean, the poet has his drawing room, or drawing board, if you like, where he or she, for that matter, thinks about the thing and starts to have those measures and how to start and how to develop the idea and how to end. I'm trying to say that poetry, again, is very intellectual, it is very mathematical. It's not, yeah, contrary to popular belief, it's not all about feelings and emotions, and right? Do you guys share the sentiment?
Just to be clear, I want to make sure that we're on the same page. What you're trying to say, Mr. Samah, is that Dr. Samah, is that uh, poetry, the content of the poem itself uh, isn't about isn't intellectual. It's more like how the poem is articulated.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that there is a process behind it. There are steps that the poet is aware of. Normally, when we talk about poetry, we talk about somebody who is waiting for the inspiration to come, and the inspiration just comes. I mean, he doesn't regulate things. I mean, he only receives and puts on the page. And I'm trying to say, no, this is not what happens. Yeah, yeah, there is obviously, there is, yeah, it is true that there is inspiration, but it is regulated by the poet. It is being also prioritized by the poet. He gets things mixed up. I mean, he has priorities and he sets them on the poem. So that's why I'm saying that it is you as a reader or as a hearer of a poem uh, would feel that there is um, a philosophy behind things. There is a rationale as why he starts this way and not that way. Are you getting it?
I most certainly agree with you. At first, I misunderstood you. I thought you meant that the content in itself, the poem itself, the content, the words used, there was something logical or scientific in there.
No, no, it's not about that.
Uh, since it's
Again,
the
yeah,
articulation of the poem, then yes, I
yeah,
do agree with
yeah. It's an argument that he is starting. If the argument starts simply by talking about the skylark itself and then comparing it to the other elements of nature and coming to the conclusion that he cannot compare it because obviously it is above everything and all the things. This is the conclusion. This is the argument that he started and developed, and then typically, because it's a logical argument, he came up with a conclusion. Again, it's exactly, I mean, I like the analogy that you used. You said that a poem is like a piece of architecture, and architecture is about geometry, is about doing your math and putting things together. And uh, thank you, Ahmed. Can we have other people contributing input into this lovely poem? So again, it's about appealing to different elements of nature. At one point, it was the west wind, the destroyer, and the preserver, and this time around, it's appealing to another element of nature, which is the skylark, which is a unique kind of bird, right? Again, the conclusion would be um, in its sweetness when we talk about its the sounds that it produces. He compares it to the poetry that poets also produce. He is also amazed at the how those songs coming out of the skylark, how beautiful and sweet they are, and obviously he's comparing him to the poetry that poets produce. Um, so it's a lovely poem again. Again, he is also trying to associate himself as a poet and all the other poets to the skylark. Again, if you see something great or somebody great, you try to kind of perhaps befriend him, become part of him, so that you can also be great. And this is obviously what the poet is trying to also do. He is trying to find a spot near the skylark so that it can, um, I mean, he himself and his poetry can also have those sweet things, can have the appeal of people. Again, I would invite you to read it one more time for more details. And obviously, discussion never ends when it comes to poetry. We can we can stay endless hours discussing it and coming up with ideas and thoughts and insights. So our discussion is or will never end. We're likely to perhaps revisit them next time too. Let's move to the other two poems. And again, the shift this time around is going to be from nature to um, and the creation of perhaps poetry and the imagination. We're moving to something concrete, to reality. will have a reality check, if you like, where we're going to be hit by real issues. Of course, you know that politics is about life. Politics is about reality. So let's see how he is addressing reality. Because at one point, romantic poets were accused of being aloof, being out of touch with reality, being out of sync with the real issues and living in their ivory towers. So the upcoming couple of poems are going to prove us wrong, are going to prove that those guys are rooted and soaked in reality. Let's see how this is playing out in the upcoming two poems. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is the first poem that I would like you to read. Again, this is, we're reading it not for the first time, for at least for people who attended with us on Monday. But let's read it with fresh eyes, everybody, even if you have read it before. And I'm sure you can come up with more ideas. Again, poetry does not lend itself to easy interpretation, and it is also um, like um, I mean, the more you read, the more ideas and insights you come away with or out with. Yeah, let's read it. It's a sonnet, which means that it's not very long, but it's very deep, I promise you. Yeah, Yalla, go ahead. Give you a couple of minutes. May I announce something? Ms. Fatma Abel Hassan, the coordinator of the course A230A, sent you an email telling you that you will have a master class tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Is that clear to everyone? So you have a master
Yes.
class tomorrow at
Yes,
1:30
Dr.
p.m. inshallah.
Clear. Thank you. Sure.
Somebody, I don't know whether from this group or the other group, was asking me about guidelines as how they can do better in exams. And I think I promised that I'll provide them with books and, of course, the guidelines. Do we have that person here?
You mean the one who asked you after the midterms?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the midterm, and I spoke to her, and she said that I can have so many ideas, but I cannot divide them. I need guidelines, and I said that I'll recommend books.
I remember it was in one of our classes. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, but not here, right? She's not here now, right?
Is
Probably
writing
not.
Yeah. What?
writing
Excuse me?
about writing?
Yeah, it's yeah, it's I mean she obviously has she normally has ideas, a lot of them, but she cannot express them well enough in exams.
Yes, I told you, me, doctor. I told you on WhatsApp also.
Yeah, Reem, you're Reem, right?
Yes.
Hi, Reem. I'll send you something tomorrow, inshallah.
Okay.
Yeah, but remind me, send me a message on WhatsApp because obviously I didn't record your name.
Yes, I
Mm,
sent you a message before. I
mm.
guess you're busy, so you didn't see it. But thank you so
No,
much.
you're welcome. Inshallah, I'll give you something nice tomorrow, a set of guidelines along with a book or two. We can always share it with everybody. I mean, if you can send me an email, it would be even more appropriate. Send me an email so that we can always share it with everyone.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Yeah, keep reading because you were reading the poem. Okay, I'm sure you have taken so many notes. Okay, let's talk about it. So let's talk about the transition from the previous two poems and now. We have the same feelings. Um, what is your overall impression? Can you survive the transition from poetry that was going in a certain direction and then poetry that is obviously moving in the opposite direction? Is this my feeling or everyone's feeling? Do you see that there is a shift? Let's talk about that. We have a shift of any sort.
A shift in the tone of the poem. It feels like it's more the poet feels like he's accusing, blaming.
No, and I'm not talking about that. This is a detail that I would like to discuss and address in a minute, but not now. What I'm trying to address is the category or the subgenre. If we talk about poetry in terms of genre and we say that we have philosophical poetry, we have reflective poetry, we have poetry of nature, we have poetry of love and feelings, we have poetry of the imagination. So where does this poem fit? Where are you likely to pigeonhole it or put it um,
But political,
in political? Yeah.
political
So,
poetry.
yeah, it's political, right? Whereas the other two poems were what? They address the power of the imagination, obviously. They address nature because the poet in the previous poems was comparing himself perhaps to elements of nature, appealing to those elements of nature, a bird and to a skylark, and the wind, the west wind, and ode to the west wind. This time around, he is not addressing anything. He is obviously um stating the obvious in the England of 1819, before and after. So the poem, like Ahmed is saying, is a political poem. There is a great deal of politics involved, and this is something that Tagreed may want to highlight or explore with us. Yeah, Tagreed, go ahead.
Yes, doctor. I believe the poet is angry when he describing when he choose his terms and his words. He is very angry, expressing his feelings in this poem. Like he has heading like vendetta. He's like expressing too much of his feelings.
Yeah. Can we have this trajectory? So if we start with uh, to a skylark, the poet is totally happy, right? And the whole poem is very joyful, right? And then we move on to the west wind, where you have this mix between happiness and sadness. Happiness in, or perhaps starting with sadness because of the power of destruction that comes in the wake of the west wind, and happiness, or when it kind of keeps and preserves small seeds. And you have total anger and total sadness and sorrow in England in 1819, the poem, right? So if you're angry or sad, you will have to have your reasons, and obviously the poet is also giving us his reasons. You can just be sad or angry. You can be angry for no reason, obviously, right? So there is something that the poet is obviously not very happy about in the England of 1819. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Are you still raising your hand, ya Tagreed? Okay. Can we have somebody else? Okay. It's only Tagreed and Ahmed, and it's very unfortunate because I expect more people. You can be difficult to talk about one of the two previous poems because it was long and the meaning is sometimes lost if the poem gets bigger or longer. But I can understand that. But what I don't understand is that you find a poem as direct as this one difficult to talk about. But I'm hopeful that my impression is wrong, and I'm hopeful that you're perhaps a little bit lazy, or perhaps it's the end of the day and you're tired and exhausted and everything in between. Let's have Talal. Go ahead, ya Talal. And we also have Zahra. Inshallah, after Talal finishes, we can always have Zahra. Yeah, Talal, you're raising your hand.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
From my impression, this poem is directly criticizing the
Criticizing, you're saying criticizing something. What is this something that the poem is or the poet is criticizing? The government?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Most specifically, uh, an aristocracy,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just when I'm describing princes as the dregs of their dull race,
Mm.
and how they do not help their country, but more but are more akin to leeches.
Yeah. That's a very interesting insight. Yeah. True.
As
Okay.
well
So yeah, go on. Sorry.
as well as how its army makes whom prey upon
Okay.
um,
Your voice comes and goes.
that's
It fluctuates, but so it's very difficult
that
to
is
make, yeah, make out what,
the end of my
uh, yeah.
system.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move to Zahra, as you're raising your hand, Zahra.
You, okay, the idea of this short poem is talking about rulers in a bad way, how they treated people bloody and harshly by starving them and make them suffering, and it encouraged people to attack this system by evoking them and um, to change their state.
Okay. That's
That's it.
interesting. Yeah. Thank you so much, Zahra.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'm open for more. If you guys have more before we start breaking the poem down to its basic components, come to the mic and share. So we said that the poet is angry, is not obviously happy, and there has to be something that people or someone that you're not happy about. And obviously, he's not happy about the ruling elite, people who were ruling England at the time. And on top of them, there was a king that he described as dying, as blind, as old, and as mad. Mad. Not literally mad. He's not saying. I mean, normally when people are very old, they are senile and they are obviously unaware of lots of things. And obviously, he doesn't stop there. It's not the king that he is having issues with. It's also the entourage of the king, people who are around the king, his sons and perhaps daughters, the princes. And he's saying it's a whole race of the whole line um, is obviously um, dull. By dull here, of course, means that they are corrupt and everything. And then he talks about rulers in general, and he says that those those people, the king and his entourage, are like rulers who never see or feel or know what is going on. They don't see what happens with people. They don't feel their suffering, and they don't know what is happening with them. And he compares those rulers to leeches. And obviously, if you know what a leech is like an insect that sucks the blood of other animals and other creatures. So it lives on that. And obviously, this is a very powerful analogy or a very powerful comparison, a negative one, though. And again, he's stressing the fact that obviously those ruling elites do not stop until those poor people that they are sucking, whose blood they are sucking, they don't stop until they drop dead. They suck every drop of blood in them. And this is very powerful. And this is, again, a very sad reality that the poor people or the people of England had or were under. So those people are starved and they are stabbed in untilled fields. So they are stabbed and they are decimated. They are not given enough food, and obviously because of the lack of job opportunities, perhaps because of the fact that people have left their fields because there was little that they can have out of them in terms of money and food, because everything, all the investments are now in the city with new factories and new industries because of the Industrial Revolution. And then he moves on to talk about other arm of the government, another member of this ruling elite, which is the army. And he is saying that the army is also involved in this kind of corruption, is involved in this kind of uh, complacency towards the suffering and the struggles of ordinary people. um, and instead of being only one sword, and I'm talking about the army, defending the country, it is now a double edged sword that it defends the company, I mean the country against the attacks of other countries, and it also defends the king and those ruling elite against the people. Obviously, this is a reference to a number of unfortunate incidents where the army was used to perhaps quell and stop protests and revolts by the people. Um, and then he talks about another arm of the government, which is obviously the judiciary, the judges and the court system, which is obviously unfair, and it is also used by the king and his entourage to perhaps terrorize people and to keep them in check. And then he moves on to another institution, which is the clergy, the church, obviously. And he is referring to this institution as being Christless and godless, which means that they are very corrupt. They are corrupt to the core. They are bad. They are not applying or implementing the laws and the rules and the teachings of Christ and of God. And then we have the Senate or the Parliament, where the people, the members of Parliament, see the laws and the statutes that are being set, and they don't revoke them. They see them, they see that people are suffering because of those laws, but they never repeal them. They never revoke them. They never say enough is enough. We are not going to endorse any of those unfair and corrupt laws. So obviously, it's all the arms of government. It's all the institutions of the government. They all conspire against the ordinary people. They all conspire against uh, uh, poor people. Um, and towards the end, he says that it is true that we have all of that, but I can still see a phantom. A phantom is like a ray, or a a ray of hope. Some kind of light. And obviously, he's saying that this light is glorious, and glorious is obviously a reference to the glorious revolution that the English themselves started in, was it the 17th century? Yeah, I think so. So he says that people can, um, you know, can at one time say enough is enough, and they can start a revolution. So this is what he is seeing. Prophetic as he is, I mean, the poet, he believes that there will come a day when uh, uh, um, people will start to take it no more. They will say enough is enough, and they are going to revolt against their oppressors. This is obviously the message. So again, it's a highly political poem, where, I mean, obviously, uh, um, Shelley is making a statement. Shelley is not, or was not, living in an ivory tower away from the cares and the worries and the issues of the people. He is a radical poet in the sense that he wants change. Um, he wants reform, whether this reform is peaceful or violent. It can happen through a revolution. This is the poet advocating for a revolution, for people to perhaps come out and protest against their oppressors and say enough is enough, and we're not putting up with this kind of thing anymore. Um, so this is an interesting poem. Again, the more you read, the more ideas you will come out of. But one thing is clear: it's about, or it is lashing out against the government and its different arms. Whether we're talking about the Senate, the Parliament, whether we're talking about the army, the judiciary, I mean the court system, um, the institution of religion. Obviously, he spared no one in his attack. And obviously, given what we know about the period and what used to happen in the period, I think it's a and it's a justified kind of attack. It's not attack for the sake of attack. It's not criticism for the sake of criticism. No. The events during the time where um, you know things that happened at the time are a clear indication that something was wrong at the time and during and around this period. We have one more poem to go, and let me check with you. Would you like us to have the fourth poem or perhaps keep it to next time? What do you think? It's,
Can
by the way, it's a sonnet. Mhm. Let's at least read it and see what will come out of it. Wait, it's called Ozymandias. Yeah, this one. Uh, what is interesting about it is that it has, I mean, we can also hear it. So it's we can hear it recited and we can also read it. We'll do the two. Let's hear it. That- Let's hear it together, okay? It's also a sonnet, which makes it short and sweet. Yalla, go ahead. Ready?
You're not sharing, Mr. Dr. Sam.
Yeah, wait. Sharing. Yeah, not yet, I think. Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if it might work. I think the internet is very slow, that's why nothing comes out. So if the problem persists, we're going to read it. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Okay, let's read it. Read it on your own, and I'll give you a couple of minutes. Okay. Okay. So remember how we started with the second part when we spoke about the third poem, and we said that the third and the fourth are similar somehow. So we spoke about different categories. We spoke about different genres or subgenres. We said that poetry can be philosophical and reflective. It can be love poetry. It can be lyrical, where the poet talks about himself and his feelings. It can be poetry of nature, can be pastoral, where the poet talks about nature, mountains, different elements of nature, rivers. It can be political. So, where would you put this poem? Is it, um, yeah, and then let's have Ahmed. Ahmed, go ahead.
Is it philosophical? I believe.
Yeah, reflective and philosophic, and it can have also a bit of politics to it. Now, obviously, he is talking about a politician or a ruler. Perhaps it's a message that he is trying to send to all the rulers of the world. No matter how big and how mighty you are, you will be reduced to dust and ashes. You will eventually die and become no more. So, are you preparing yourself for this day when you are no more? When you are downtrodden, when even the civilization that you brag about becomes no more, it becomes a path that people take, becomes a desert that people walk on to go to other places. Are you ready? Perhaps this can also be the message, right? So, on uh, in the grand scheme of things, this is philosophical and reflective on the human condition, that nothing remains the same, the vanity of human wishes, the futility of life. This is a message that um, we all have to heed and understand. Perhaps he's addressing me and you and everybody else here and now and in the future and always and everywhere. And if you can limit the scope a little bit, it can be addressing rulers, perhaps at the time, who thought that they would live forever, who thought that they wouldn't die, and perhaps they will take their glory with them when they die. Okay, let's perhaps narrow and limit the scope a little and think of the poem and its details. And this is and how those messages are playing out in the poem. So what's the scenario? It's like having a story. It is a story or it is a poetic narrative where we have the persona of the poem meeting a traveler. They were going somewhere and they saw something and they started to reflect on this something and so on. So what do we know? Let's talk about it. What did you understand? I'm talking about the details, not their significance yet. I'm not talking about the underlying philosophy of what is happening in the poem. I'm talking about, or perhaps I want somebody to tell us what is actually happening in the poem, as if it is a narrative or a story.
So, like, you want me to narrate the
Yeah,
poems in
what's
an understandable way?
yeah, because it's a story. It's a narrative, it's a poetic narrative or a poetic story. If you have people and if you have an event and if you have a theme and if you have a setting, time and place, so you have, if you have point of view, so you have all the elements of a story, of a narrative. So what's happening?
Well, the poem starts when a traveler when a traveler finds in an antique land. When someone, I'm sorry, the poem starts when a man meets a traveler from an antique land, and the traveler says that two vast and trunkless that a colossal statue where only the legs remain is in sight. And as the two characters, the traveler and the man in the story, that they see that the statue is demolished and only the legs remain, they find the visage, the face, lying next to it. And beneath the statue lies a pedestal that says, um, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair." Uh, so the theme here, I believe, is the contrast between the king's self-image of grandeur and greatness and the lion decay that we see around the land. Is that close enough?
Absolutely, yes, yeah, that's the thing, yes. Yeah, this is what I also understood, and this is pretty much what everybody understood. The fact that we have travelers, and they are obviously in the middle of the desert. They are going somewhere, and they encounter a big statue whose different parts are scattered all over the place. And obviously, those different parts belong to the same statue. And the statue is of a grand ruler, uh, Ozymandias. When they put the pieces together, they get the message. They have also this pedestal uh, uh, um, where it is written that the statue belongs to the King of Kings. And this King of Kings is inviting them to reflect on what is happening in front of their eyes. So it is true that he is mighty, or he was mighty, and he has achievements and works, but look at him now. He is no more. All that is left of him are, you know, the parts of a statue, and obviously they are scattered, which means that he is lying on the ground, helpless, and he is inviting us to reflect on this, to think of how he was and how he is now. Uh, he was glorious. Everybody thought very highly of him. He was the King of Kings. He has all the power there is, all the pleasure there is, all the knowledge there is. But look at him now. He is nothing. He is reduced to mere uh, dust and mere, parts of a statue. So this is obviously the literal level of things. And obviously, um, on the abstract level, we have a lot of things. I mean, it's obviously a very strong message against against, despotism, absolute rule, against oppression, about rulers who think that they are not going to die, and those rulers who think that they can get away with whatever injustices they make or they commit. So obviously, Ozymandias is a statement against corruption, against absolutism and despotism, always and everywhere. Um, they say that the Ozymandias is also, and the statue is obviously a reference to Ramses II of Egypt, the high and mighty pharaoh. And again, look at where Ramses II now. Where is he? He's no more, right? So this seems to be the message that Shelley is trying to get. So it can, to get across to us, of course. It can be a universal message, and obviously is addressing every one of us, telling us you need not think that you will live forever. You need not think that you can get away with whatever bad things you can uh, make or commit. You need to think that you can never get away with being unfair and being unjust, because you'll die and you will be held accountable. It can also be a message to, again, to all of us, reminding us of the fact that humility is the best policy. You need to be modest and humble. You need to treat people in a nice way. You need to brag about your achievements, because at one point you will be no more and nobody is going to remember you or your achievements. They are going to be reduced to perhaps mere ashes, mere dust. So take it easy on yourself. It reminds me right away of Abu al-Ala al-Ma'arri's poem, remember? خفف الوطء ما أظن أديم الأرض من. Remember this poem?
It's that.
It's a poem by Ala Abu al-Ma'arri. It's about also
After you told us,
inviting people to show humility, because they are treading on the land under which people are buried. So those were people like us, alive, and look at where they are now. He is trying to ask people who are alive to show humility, because at one point they will also die, and other people will also tread and walk on them. So this is a very I would like you to read the poem by Ala Abu al-Ma'arri. I don't remember the title of the poem, but I remember the verse, and it says خفف الوطء ما أظن. Did you remember this poem, يا جماعة? طب let me
actually,
yeah
Samih, when you told us on Monday,
yeah
you found some poems that seem similar to the one that we just read, the one about Ozymandias. Abu Ala al-Ma'arri was one of the first ones that came to mind. As I searched, I found it. There's also Adonis. There's a third one too.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I would like you, I'm inviting you all to have those comparisons written for us, and let's look at them. And I think I'll stop on this note and with this lovely item. But before I do that, I would like us to meet twice next week. We're going to meet on Monday with the other class with the link. And I would like us to also meet on Tuesday with your link. So the two classes will meet twice, Monday and Tuesday, so that we can finish everything. We can talk more about all the poems and all the romantic poetry, and then perhaps start in the revision. So if you guys have any final thoughts. Okay. طيب.
Doctor, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your name?
Uh, my name is Dana. About the final,
Yeah.
all the two books or all the chapters, we're gonna have them
All the things that we
like
have
from
done.
Othello.
Yeah, starting with Othello, and even the background to Othello and to the Duchess of Malfi, all the way to the Romantics and to Shelley.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome. Any more ideas or thoughts or concerns? طيب. طيب, on this note and with this item, we'll come to the end of today's class. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Salam alaikum.